And welcome, folks, to the talk show, Let the Truth Be Told. I'm your host, Pastor David. And, folks, we got a great show today. We're going to talk about the big, beautiful bill. We're going to talk about the Supreme Court justices and the decisions that they made this past weekend. So if you ain't got nothing to do, call your friends and let them know. You're listening to Let the Truth Be Told radio, and I'm your host, Pastor David. Y'all, come on in. Thank you. And welcome, folks, to the talk show, Let the Truth Be Told. I'm your host, Pastor David. And first, let me give all praises to God and my Lord and Savior, Yahshua, who made it possible for me to be here and those listening to the show. Folks, before I bring my panel in, I want the American people and patriots across this country to remind themselves, we must remember what have happened to this country in the past 4 years under the leadership of the Democratic Party, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. All these people are so worried about the big, beautiful bill, but it's a lot of rhetoric that is going on about this bill because the Democrats who took our national debt from 28 that President Trump left office with to over 36 to 37 trillion dollars. They gave money to illegals. They tried a culture change. I'm saying this to the American people and patriots across this country because we seem to forget the riots that the migrants who are here illegally imposed a couple of weeks ago in California and across the country. We seem to forget, especially Black people running around here talking about some DEI, and we're the last people in the world who benefited from DEI. So to the American people and patriots across this country, we have to remember what happened to us and how our country was so screwed up the last 4 years under the leadership of the Democrats, 8 years under Barack Obama, 2 more terms under Bill Clinton. I didn't have no sex with that woman. And all of this foolishness that the Democrats have caused and to seek the destruction of our country. So today we're going to talk about the Supreme Court justices and the decisions that they made about not immigrations, the 14th Amendment. And it's a damn shame that parents had to get their parental rights back. We're going to talk about that. So if you ain't got nothing to do, let me get my panel in here. Where they at? Here, everybody come. Hey, everybody.
Hey.
Hello.
Good
How y'all
morning.
doing today?
Doing well.
We got a special guest. We got Mr. Binky in here, the hippie.
Yay.
Ain't
Mr.
no
Hippie.
special about that.
Now,
He's great.
Let me tell y'all about Mr. Hippie. It was Mr. Hippie who gave me an opportunity because he sought out Project 21 and then put us together. That was the hippie that did that.
Okay.
I hadn't known nothing about Project 21. This is my first co-host of my show, man, and we gave it to the world. We gave it to the world the truth, and that's how we evolved to this. So welcome back to the show, my brother.
All right, thanks.
Okay, this is the dilemma that I'm having. I'm having a dilemma with the big, beautiful bill because every Republican should be voting for this bill, because what this bill is going to do, it's going to fix the problems that the Democrats caused under the leadership of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. As I said in my monologue, Trump left this country with a $28 trillion deficit. When Joe Biden and them get in, it went past 32. It's well past $36 trillion before they got out of office. And so I need the American people to remember how effed up that the Democrats left this country. You know, they went against everything, against our culture. They went against our companies overseas. Our reputation has been tainted. They let China have balloons over here. Joe stole documents and put them out in the garage with his Corvette. Oh, they're safe. We had a president that was totally incompetent, that didn't run this country. And I'm saying it because the American people and patriots across this country should be mad as hell on what they did. And now they have the audacity to be in Congress, the Democrats, talking about this bill when this bill is fixing a lot of things that the Democrats destroyed. It's on you, Andre. You go up first.
Well, what we're finding here is that these are not sensible policies. Whether it's immigration, whether it's financial policies, whether it was policies around international relations, a lot of it just didn't make sense. And what we're seeing now is a reversal of all of that. But what I don't want to see is that at the end of Trump's term, that the next person that comes into the executive office decides to reverse all that he did. So long-term legislation that we're seeing from this financial bill, the big, beautiful bill, is just a lot of the things that we need to see. If Congress is not going to do it, then there has to be other ways that the Republicans work to ensure that we get the legislation that we need.
Mr. Binky, you up?
No, well, I'm not much into the money part of it, but you know, like Andre said, you know, the last 4 years they destroyed just about everything they had their hands on. Now we got to make up for it, you know, and unfortunately they don't mention about all the tariffs, the money that's bringing in. They don't mention all the waste, abuse, and the fraud, and Medicare and Social Security and all that stuff too. So I kind of look at it that, yeah, maybe this bill might bring some debt, but what about the revenues and savings from all the other stuff? What's that going to, is that going to counter it? You know, and what's the long-term effect is if we create laws and make sure that people that don't deserve something don't get it. That's going to be even a longer term. And then the money, the billions of dollars we've had to spend on all the illegal immigration for their, you know, housing and all. I mean, you know, there's so much there that's not being added up to argue the fact about why we've got to have a big, beautiful bill to make up for the 4 years of destruction.
Okay, Doc, you up?
Yeah, so a lot of this big, beautiful bill, and, you know, Elon's been upset about it, but here's my thought on it. I'm not trying to put words in President Trump's mouth, but what he's trying to do is spend money to make money through deregulation. So a lot of people don't like that part because, you know, they consider that in some verbiage, trickle down economics, right? Where they're hoping through the deregulation that will actually create more jobs by loosening the regulations on these companies so that they can hire more people. But also through that deregulation, they're going to be able to increase the supply that we lost during COVID. Because what I shared on my show today, during COVID, you know, people were throwing away milk because they were told to. They were destroying crops because they were told to. Then we were in a situation where the supply and demand was upside down. We still had the same amount of demand, but the supply wasn't there. And then they wanted to inflate the government by saying, okay, now we have to give these people more money. And so that's how we really got upside down during COVID. And so President Trump is trying to come in and reverse that through capitalism. And a lot of people don't see it and they don't like it because they're like, oh my gosh, the deficit's off the chain. But what the tariffs are going to do and what this deregulation should do is it should put more money in the general economy to lower the deficit. I think that's really his goal and plan.
His goal is to be able to put more money into the everyday citizen's pocket. That's what the president planned. That's what he's trying to do. And so that's why I'm saying this whole situation. Now we see the Democratic leadership. They're coming against it. They're talking about wasteful spending. And that's what makes me mad is because you probably spent what, $3 or $4 trillion on illegal migrants.
They don't like part 2 of the bill that specifically says that their taxpayers will no longer fund illegal immigrants. There is that section, part 2.
And see, that's the whole thing of it is, to me, what we're seeing is this. We're seeing that after President Trump made this country a man and a woman. See, and I was talking to a friend of mine this morning. This is all about the spiritual warfare, see. Let me drop some nuggets on you right quick. The reason why we having this problem is because of the Sodomites. And the Sodomites are the descendants from Sodom and Gomorrah. That's why we see the rise in homosexuality, see. They still pissed off because God destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah, and yet they went into hiding a long time. And so they have been waiting for this moment. Because, see, this is pure evil. There's no other explanation for it. Why all of a sudden would our country had to be turned into a place where transgenderism is not even honored by God, and it's not even a race of people? So this is no more than the hateful Sodomites who were destroyed by God. Now they've reared their head again in our society. And under the Biden administration, they pushed a whole new culture on the American people. And that's what this is. Under the surface, that's what it really is. It was never about COVID. COVID was about the cover. We're gonna use COVID. Once we do COVID, we're gonna shut the churches down. We're gonna leave the liquor stores open. We're gonna leave Planned Parenthood open. We're going to destroy this country, and then we're going to implement the transgender world. Why do you think it ended up in our schools with our children? They had to get them early because they can't reproduce. So to the American people and patriots across this country, everything that the transgenders did, President Trump has undone it. When he created and said there's nothing but a man and a woman in the United States, transgenderism do not exist in this country. And that's what the fight is about. That's the real fight. You would run the country from 28 trillion to over 37, 36 trillion. It could be more. That was all done under Democratic leadership. And I'm telling the American people today, we need to stand firm with the president. We need to get this bill passed, because in this bill, it gave a whole bunch of people their rights back. And I want to talk a little bit quickly about that. But I'm gonna put the bill out there so people can see it. We'll comment on it.
Senate kicking off the so-called vote-a-rama at 9 a.m. Eastern time, or just after. They debated for the 940-page Big Beautiful Bill over the weekend. If it passes, the House may vote as early as Wednesday, just 2 days before the self-imposed July 4th deadline. Now, this version of the bill will make the 2017 tax cuts permanent, reduce taxes on tips and overtime, increase border security funding, and cut green energy tax credits.
Now, folks, I want to talk about this for a minute so people can see this. Okay, in this bill, we can see all the things that President Trump said that he was going to do, from the long promises. You guys want to talk about that right quick?
It's all there. It's so nice. It's so nice. He's done a great job.
Absolutely. And the big part for me is the billions in immigration enforcement. That was a big promise that the president made. And look at him today. He has alligator Alcatraz. Like, he's getting creative with how he's going to deal with this immigration problem. And now he's in a situation where he's going to deputize like I'm trying to think of what force it is. It's their
police, state
National
police
Guard.
again.
They're
National
gonna
Guard.
their
Yep.
National Guard. They're gonna
Oh.
deputize them to be actual immigration judges. So
Okay, good.
this is so creative, and he needs the money to be able to continue on the path. Without the money, Trump's not going to be able to continue his fast pace in the direction he wants to take the country with immigration.
Hold that thought, Andre. I'm going to put a clip in.
Okay, sorry.
Beautiful bill does pass. How do you expect that to impact the number of deportations per day? Will it be twofold, threefold?
Vastly increased. Depends how quick we get more resources on, how quick we get the contractors on, how quick we bring the beds on. I mean, Governor DeSantis, I give him credit. We got the facility he's putting up in Florida. We'll be filling those beds as quick as we can because we need more beds. I mean, I looked at this morning. I think we got like 1,700 empty beds. We'll fill them in 2 days. So we need more beds. That bill is going to let us sign contracts that are pending for more beds. We don't have the funding to do it. Once that bill passes and the money comes to the Department of Homeland Security, we can sign some of those contracts and get more beds right away.
And on the big, beautiful bill, Mr. Home, if you don't mind, thank you so much for doing this and just keep with us. We know that President
Asked during the Biden administration.
Now, what Tom just said is why we needed the money for the immigrations, right, Andre?
That's right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And if the Trump administration does not get that money, then it's going to be hard for them to continue at the pace that they are without getting a bill to go through Congress. And that we've already seen that Congress is not interested in drafting up any legislation. They have so many complaints about what Donald Trump is doing, but they don't have any solutions themselves.
No,
Exactly.
they don't want any. This is called obstruction, right?
Yes.
I wouldn't doubt if they don't try to filibuster or anything. But what they're setting themselves up is to not get voted back in office in 2026. And people need to definitely remember this. And also the AI provision was removed from the bill. So there shouldn't really be anything to hinder the bill going through after it goes back to the House. They should be able to just look at it, review it, and pass it through, because they can pass it without the Democrats.
Your thoughts, Mr. Binky?
Well, I mean, the Democrats are doing all the crying because they had their biggest issue is government's not supporting people. The Democrats want government to support people, pay for everything, do for them. And this bill has freed up a lot of money because government's not going to be doing this no more. So the Democrats run on what we can give you. Republicans are running on what you can give yourself.
Yes.
So that's one of their biggest crybabies about this whole deal, and I've said it before, said it a million times. Democrats don't like America because of their policies. And our Constitution is only for a moral and religious people. And you've seen them attack God. You've seen their transgender stuff. You see them putting churches down. They're bringing in Islam or Muslim stuff. And now threats are coming up. The Democrats are nothing but anti-American in my view.
And while we got this up, I'm going to play a little bit more of this clip. Let's talk about the Medicaid reform, because, see, the Democrats are using this bill to say that they're going to cut Medicaid, and that's to scare seniors. That's to scare anybody who is on it, Black people. But the real Medicaid reforms is because they're finding out all the illegals that the Democrats put on Medicaid.
Yep, exactly.
So to the American people and patriots across this country, we have to look past what the words say. It says Medicaid reforms. Yes, it does need to be reformed because they need to get all the illegals off there. They need to get people who are continuously using Medicaid, frauding the government, and that's what this is about. This has nothing to do with a mom or a pop or a senior who needs Medicaid for their medicines or to go to the doctor. It's for the American citizens, and it should not be for illegals. We're going to play a little bit more of this before we go to the next one.
GOP also reaching a tentative $40,000 deal on the SALT deduction. 2 Republican senators voted against the bill. North Carolina Senator Tom Tillis, Kentucky Senator Rand Paul. Tillis then announcing he would not be seeking re-election, while the president hailed it as a great news on Truth Social. Joining me now is Iowa Congressman Zach Nunn. He's a member of the House Financial Services Committee. Congressman, your
Okay, folks, that's enough. Let's talk about that now. You up, Doc? What you think about Rand Paul?
Well, here's the thing. Well, I do like Rand Paul, and I think Rand's issue with the bill was he really wanted to rein in spending. And to his point, he was like, with the money that was saved from Doge, why couldn't we have actually attributed that to, lowering the deficit as opposed to adding more money? And that's what he was talking about. He was talking about reallocating debt to lower the deficit. And that wasn't taken into consideration and factor. So he's more of a money person. And I respect him for that. But at the same time, it's like, okay, dude, you've got to see the bigger picture here. Through the deregulation, we will make more money because we are a capitalist country. That's why people want to come here. They left their socialist countries because they're failing. And we need to really improve in our capitalist structure, but at the same time, rein in the corporate welfare that we have going on. Let's not be deceived. And I do call it corporate welfare because there are a lot of these companies making their money off the backs of the American people and getting paid on both ends. So let's be clear. You can do this on your own. You do not need the government for everything. And that comes back to Congress reining in that spending.
Your thoughts, Dre?
I say ditto to everything Dr. Nichols said. I do think that Rand Paul is being a bit of an instructionist, but I do think that there may need to be some compromise. They might need to give Rand Paul something so he can get on board with the bill, because it can't just be he's giving it all.
Let's go.
We got to do something. We got to compromise.
Well, see, that's the whole thing of it is you get rhino Republicans, man. Everybody should be involved on top of this bill.
He's not a Republican. He is a libertarian. Okay.
Oh, is that what he is?
Let's be clear. He is not a Republican.
Okay.
He's a libertarian.
Yeah. All of these different names don't make no sense. Now, I don't care if you're a Republican or a libertarian or a Democrat. Right. Your job is to be there in Congress to support and make sure the American people get what they need, and it should be about the American people. That's where it should be. Okay. So I this bill thing has really gotten to be, because it got passed. I watched some of it last night. It got past the Senate and J.D. Vance through the tiebreaker, and that's what it was needed. We got that, but it has to come before the Congress now. And so I got another clip that talked about, now the lawmakers, if you know that you're a lawmaker, you got to know that there was a timeline on this to get passed. Okay, Trump want to sign it on the 4th of July, which we can get that done. But some of these lawmakers left so that they could say, well, if he called me back, then I might not make it. But we're going to play a clip what some of the lawmakers are doing this morning trying to get back in.
Now the rough weather complicating Republicans' race to pass President Trump's massive tax and spending bill. Several House members had their flights to Washington canceled after the measure narrowly passed the Senate. Senior political correspondent Rachel Scott has the latest. Good morning, Rachel.
Robin, good morning to you. And we know that Republican leadership is keeping a very close eye on the weather and those flight delays, because as it stands now, they already have a razor-thin majority. Speaker Mike Johnson can only afford to lose 3 votes, and already a handful of Republicans are signaling they may not be on board.
This morning, lawmakers scrambling to get back to D.C. amid canceled flights and bad weather.
We're going to drive all the way through till we get to Washington, D.C.
House Republicans under pressure to pass the president's massive tax cut and spending bill. Overnight, Speaker of the House Mike Johnson saying a vote could happen Thursday at the latest.
Depending on the weather, delays and travel and all the rest, that's the wild card that we can't control.
The House set to take up the bill after a divided Senate narrowly passed it. Vice President J.D. Vance casting the tie-breaking vote.
The bill as amended is passed.
3 Republican senators voting against it, including Rand Paul of Kentucky.
If you're someone who thinks the debt is a problem, I don't see how you could vote for this.
By one estimate, the bill would add at least $3.3 trillion to the debt over the next 10 years. The bill includes roughly $4 trillion in tax cuts, mostly for the wealthiest Americans, and fulfills some campaign promises like no taxes on tips and overtime. But it defies Trump's repeated pledge that he would not cut Medicaid. The nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office predicts some 11.8 million Americans could lose their health coverage over the next decade. Democrats ready to seize on those cuts for the midterm election.
The American people will not forget the betrayal that took place today.
Your thoughts on that, Doc? The betrayal.
I roll. First of all, the 11.8 million people losing it are people that were here illegally that shouldn't have had it in the first place. That's why we're here. That's why we're in so much debt. But only to that, adding to that debt, you know, we don't think about the people that have to go to the emergency room because they do not have health care. We don't think about those things, the pregnancies that happen on our soil from people that are here illegally. Like, a lot of this is self-inflicted by our government. Okay?
Yes.
Full stop. You need to quit lying to the general public.
Go ahead, Dre.
And I think on top of that, you have the able-bodied Americans that are not working, that are taking advantage of these of the Medicaid plan. And they're trying to get those people off. And I think they should get those people off, because what have we seen in the United States over the last 20 or 30 years? We've seen a decrease in the America worker participation percentage. And maybe we can get some of those people back to work. And now might be a good time for that.
Well, because during COVID, people were making more money at home than they were in the workforce. And that happened. And then they didn't properly transition those people back into the workforce and giving them a quality of life with affordable health care. Like, it still comes back to government regulating properly, right? And not throwing our lives away. The illegal immigration was just insult to injury.
Your thoughts, Mr. Hippie?
Well, I got a question listening to that. It says that it's projected to add $3.3 trillion to the debt over 10 years.
Right.
What happens over the next 3 years?
Right.
Our spending is taken down. I mean, you know, Trump's talked about eliminating the Department of Education. What about the Department of Energy? What about EPA? What about all these agencies that government's got to spend money on to pay for that shouldn't even be existing? So if we start eliminating that waste, is that not going to, the spending causes the debt, right?
Yes. Yes.
So I'm not an economist, but if we've got a government that's too big and they're spending too much, wouldn't it be a good idea to cut government down the way it's supposed to be?
Of course, but that's what they're crying about.
Yeah.
That's what they're crying about.
So their projection of a 3.3 trillion increase in debt, it's a big lie.
Yeah.
You know, this is the whole thing, and this is why it's important that we break these things down to our viewers and listeners so they can share this information, because what we see from the normal media, just like, you know, the chick was sitting up there, Robbins was sitting up there talking about the big bill. Well, they sit back and watch this country be torn apart, and they watch trillions of dollars of taxpayer dollars go to migrants, and they never said nothing about it. ABC and NBC and them, they never came out and started talking about, oh, this is wrong and this situation, that. They never said nothing about Kamala Harris with the borders was open. They tried to justify it. And so when we see these Holly Robinson type commentators who are trying to make the American people think President Trump got in the office, he's spending all of this money, but they forget that it was them who put us in this position in the first place.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Why do they call it the big beautiful bill?
Because that's what Trump called it.
Yeah,
Trump said, I want to pass my big beautiful bill, and it just stuck.
So what his big beautiful bill is it consists of many smaller bills that they would
It's
pass
an omnibus
throughout the
bill.
year.
It is
and they're
truly an
getting,
omnibus.
yeah, and they're getting it over with in one time.
Yes.
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 Oh, okay.
It's an omnibus.
The full name of it is the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. So they're like Dr. Nichols was saying, it's an omnibus bill where they have a lot of smaller bills in one bill.
Yeah. They're trying to address a lot of the issues that have been going on in multiple facets that just need to be corrected.
Right.
And you're so right, Doc. There are some things that need to be corrected with this big, beautiful bill. And that's the biggest problem that we see that's going down, is because the Democrats, when they were in office, they changed a lot of cultural things. They did a lot of things in the school system. They just about destroyed this country with all the things that they did. And in this big, beautiful bill, it is bringing things back to the way it used to be, that it should have never been changed. And that's what the Democrats are fighting like hell. They're saying, wow, you know, we made leaps and bounds under the Biden-Harris administration as far as teaching the children to be pronouns and all the other things, guys walking around with gay parades. They took the whole month of June and made it Pride Month. I mean, they did a lot of bad things. The Democrats did a lot of bad things to the American people under the justification of culture. And so what President Trump did was he bringing things back to the way it used to be. Maybe now we can get God back in this country. Now, and to the transgenders, you no longer exist. The laws in this country said that there's only two genders in America, and that's a man and a woman. That's in line with what God said. See, that's what we have to get back to, the righteousness. God said he made a man and a woman. He didn't make two men and two women, a man and a woman. And so the president is bringing these things back, and that's what we should be looking forward to.
And don't forget, the Democrats said the same thing 20 years ago.
They did.
Now it's changed.
Yeah, because now you have more people that are socialists and progressives that are more so activist than they are servants of the people.
Right. And so many people are up in arms about this one big, beautiful bill. Let's say that we broke up the bill into 4 different parts. What typically happens to a bill? Well, people want a cut of the bill. They want to get something out of it. So if we just had an immigration omnibus, right? If it was just all focused on immigration, they would add some pork in there, and then there would be people that vote against it. But when in this one big, beautiful bill strategy, there's something in there for a lot of different people. So I think that's the strategy that the White House is going with to kind of get it across the finish line.
Yeah. And it's actually, the immigration portion is actually forcing the situation where people have to be here legally, and they have to deport people that are here illegally. It really actually elevates the standard of our immigration process.
And it should be that way. We shouldn't have never had this illegal invasion on our country, and we have illegal migrants here. Just like on the last show that we did, the lady was talking about how stupid America was and how her country was just so much better than America. But you sitting over here trying to get American dollars. See, that doesn't make sense. You're an illegal, and they're so ungrateful, and they're so brazen that they come to our country and feel like that they can spit on the American people. But now things are changing. Now that immigrations that Tom Homan and them is doing what they're supposed to be doing, they just created a whole new area in Florida called Alligator Alcatraz to house some of these bad people who have been put into our country by the Democratic Party to destroy the very fabric of this country. Now, we're going to shift the gears a little bit. We're going to talk about some of this stuff is in the big, beautiful bill, too. I want to talk about the Supreme Court decisions that happened on the weekend. We didn't have a chance to break this down, so I want to break it down today to people. To all the people who are here, who are worried about the birthright. See, that's the issue. The 14th Amendment was created for Black people. It wasn't created for the Hispanics. It wasn't created for the Italians. It was created for black people so that they could be naturalized and our children could become citizens in the United States, since they stole us and forced us to build this country. Now, Mr. Binky, you got some information. You want to talk about that 14th Amendment right quick?
Yeah.
Okay. And I've got to go.
Okay, Doc.
So I'll see you guys soon.
Enjoy. Happy 4th of July. But we have to ask ourselves, who got free on 4th of July? Not black people. We'll see you later. Go ahead, Mr. Binky.
Yeah, well, every time you hear the talk about the 14th Amendment, the reason it was created was to citizenize the slaves and their children and stuff. You don't hear the argument over that other than now with Trump. But when the bill in 1866 was being created, it was on the floor, and Senator Howard from Michigan, he described what the first article of the 14th Amendment meant about citizenship. And he said, this amendment which I have offered is simply declaratory of what I regard as the law of land already, that every person born within the limits of the United States is subject to their jurisdiction is by virtue of natural law and natural law as citizen of the United States. This will not, of course, include persons born in the United States who are foreigners, aliens, who belong to families of ambassadors and foreign ministers accredited to the government of the United States, but will include every other class of persons. It settles the great question of citizenship and removes all doubt as to what persons are or are not citizens of the United States. This was in the creation of the 14th Amendment. This was by the people who created the 14th Amendment. They defined in that what a citizen is or is not. And you don't hear that, or at least I have not heard that argument when you hear this going into court. I'm an originalist. Our Constitution was created originally under certain criteria, is the only way I can put it, is when they created it, this is what it meant. And our courts like to go on precedents. That means they want to take a court case that made a wrong decision years ago because they did not enter in evidence to argue that case. Just like Roe versus Wade. 72, the Supreme Court said the federal government can control abortion. 50 years later, guess what? They ruled that they don't have authority over abortion, and everybody threw a fit. So my point is, if you don't argue from the original intent, you're not going to get the true picture. And that's what we got to go back to, is what was the founding fathers' intentions? And that's what we've got to stick to.
Dre, your thoughts?
Yes. Everything that Mr. Binky said is spot on. I want to add something. There's, along with the original intent, we have to look at their motivation, because at that time, they were in wars. They were involved in wars, and they had all these people that were in the country, and, you know, other countries were just like, hey, you can't send our people to fight against us. So they had to wrap all this up to determine who was a citizen. So when we were going out and having these wars, we wouldn't be in a situation where people could easily duck a draft if a draft needed to be set in place. So that was part of the motivation as well, determining who was a citizen for our military force.
Well, you know, one thing for sure is this, and this is why I say history is needed regarding what's happening in this country in the past. The 14th Amendment was created because Black people needed to pick a side in that war. And when they created that allowed Black people to become citizens, naturalized citizens through the 14th Amendment. This way, that's why so many Black people got on board with the North, because the North was saying, we're going to offer you opportunities to be self-contained and all of that. And so that was created so that Black people could become natural citizens in the United States. It was never meant. And see, this is why I say the Democrats always screw stuff up. Just like they destroyed Black Wall Street and created the Ku Klux Klan. It was never meant for illegal aliens to come into this country and have a baby and say, well, we're here because we're here illegally and we had sex and we made a baby and it popped out on the American soil. So the 14th Amendment says we're citizens. That's bullshit. That's straight bullshit. You're not a citizen. You just was an illegal who had a baby on American soil. You and your children have to go back to where you came from, because the key word, illegal. And I don't understand how, but see, the Democrats made a lot of shifty moves concerning that, because when they opened the borders and brought these illegals over here, then they've been using this birthright thing as a way to keep illegals in the country and keep using them and keep saving dollars that the corporations use this low-paying wage workers in the country. And so we need to understand, as the American people and patriots of this country, we need to understand exactly what the 14th Amendment is what Mr. Binky just read. It has nothing to do with illegal. It clearly states that anybody who are illegally here cannot use the 14th Amendment to be a citizen.
And the 14th Amendment says that too. It says under jurisdiction. If you're from another country, you're not under the jurisdiction of the United States. You're under the jurisdiction of the country you came from.
Yes.
So it specifically says in there, under the jurisdiction of. If you're not of the United States, you're of the other country.
And see, go ahead, Dre.
And what you find too is that with the under the jurisdiction of, what we're finding is that people have a question about their status. And what Trump's executive order does, it goes in with a scalpel, because it determines, hey, if you have one parent that's a citizen, we're not talking about you. The Trump administration didn't go in to try to rewrite the 14th Amendment. They went in to clarify it, because people were abusing the system. And they were coming here, like you were saying, Pastor Lowery, they were having babies and claiming that now they have legal status. That's not true. And what Mr. Binky has shown us is the original intent. And what Trump's executive order does is it says, from this day forth, we're not doing this garbage anymore. And we're not going back and retroactively pulling people that did this 20 or 30 years ago. We're saying that from this point forward, this is not going to happen anymore. And I think that's the part that people miss. And they go into all these conspiracy theories that they're going to pull people from 20 or 30 years ago, or start deporting Black Americans that have been here since the 1800s or earlier. So like, this is the craziness that we have.
But this is the liberal, this is what the Democrats does. You know, they create fear. They got people thinking that, oh, I'm gonna be deported. No, Andre, what you explained to them from this moment on. So the people in the past, you're okay. You're fine.
Yeah, but all that happened this weekend with the ruling was not, they didn't even clarify this. They didn't even clarify what we're talking about. What they said is that the lower courts could no longer stop the executive order without having some sort of case with an individual suing, right? So now you can't have these liberal justices that stop the case nationally. Like, it doesn't make sense that they're able to stop it nationally. Maybe in their jurisdiction, but not nationally. So they're not allowing these liberal judges to legislate or to control what the American people put Trump in office to do.
You know what legislation needs to do right now is to define what a citizen is.
That's next.
Because
that's next. They're going to have to do it.
Because as Andre said, the courts only said that they can't do this, but they didn't make an actual ruling on anything or an opinion.
Exactly.
And they're dragging it down, and the states want to wait till October when the Supreme Court comes back in. I don't care what the Supreme Court's got to say. The Supreme Court does not hold the purse, nor do they hold the sword. So what that means is the legislators, they're the ones that hold all the money, make decisions, laws, etc. And the sword is the executive branch that makes sure the laws are enforced. The Supreme Court has historically, by the founding fathers, given the least amount of power. So their say-so has no power of the purse or sword. So what the states got to do now, while they're in session before the Supreme Court comes back, is to make sure that the citizenship is defined on its true intent, and then we don't need to worry about the Supreme Court. They're out of the picture.
Well, and that's the reason why. That's the reason why you see to the American people and patriots, what you're seeing on this show is a breakdown and it being explained to the American citizens, so we will know exactly what the 14th Amendment means and why the Supreme Court did what they did. They didn't break it down like this, so people are thinking the Democrats are taking and run with it and try to screw it up and say, well, it means this and it means that. What we've shown you today is exactly what the 14th Amendment is. That's per the Constitution. And that's what it is. And so all this time, it has been misconstrued. It has been used for a birthright to have kids over here to justify illegal immigration. I mean, the list goes on of abuse. Was it the Dreamers Act that Barack them put together for people to stay in this country illegally? That should tell you right there, as an American citizen, when I see this type of stuff, it tells me one thing, that the Democratic Party hates this country. They're trying to turn it into a socialist country that is being ruled by the elite. They don't realize that this is a republic. And that's the reason why we're seeing things being brought back to the way that this country is supposed to be ran as a republic. So when you start talking about democracy, that's not democracy if we allow people to come over here that are illegal, and then we take a clause in our Constitution, the 14th Amendment, and fix it where it could house illegals. That doesn't make sense.
And you mentioned DACA. DACA is not a law. It's an executive order. It's a suggestion.
Yes.
And DACA has no legal binds to anything. That's a bunch of, it's just like sanctuary city. Sanctuary cities aren't lawful because the immigration was given to the federal government. What gives a right to a state to say, oh, I don't like what I gave to the federal government to do, so now I'm going to create a sanctuary and I'm going to make the rules? You don't have the power to make the rules to start with.
Exactly. And this is why we're continuously seeing this battle between federal rights and states' rights. And this is what the Supreme Court has to kind of filter through. This is why this 14th Amendment has been a problem for all these years, because the Supreme Court has not wanted to take this up. And there hasn't been an administration that has been bold enough to take it to the Supreme Court and force it on their table to discuss it. So we're going to get an answer soon enough, whether that's in the fall or earlier. But what I can say is that until we figure out this the federal versus the states' rights here, we're going to continue to have problems, but we can't just leave it. We can't leave this situation up to the states, because we've seen that the states will do exactly what they want to do, independent of what the federal government has mandated. So
all
there will be this pushback.
All we got to do is just like what Andre just said. We've got to figure out the states and the federal power, right?
Yep.
All we got to do is pull the Constitution out.
Yep.
The federal government was created to take care of foreign affairs, war, peace, treaties. and they were given few and defined powers listed in Article 1, Section 8. And there's only 18 clauses to that. There's only 18 things: immigration, weights and balances, foreign trade, et cetera, et cetera. That's not hard to read. A fifth grader could read the Constitution and understand it. It's our politicians that are doing what they want to do with this, and the interpretations that they want to do. And as Andre pointed out, the Supreme Court's been staying away from all this. We don't want to do this. We shouldn't depend on the Supreme Court. It's you and I and everybody else that's listening needs to educate ourselves, understand what the power and proper role of federal government is. Problem could be solved overnight.
Absolutely, Mr. Binky. I'm sorry, Pastor
Go ahead.
Lauren.
No, go ahead. No, that's good.
Okay. So we talk about on this show a lot about the, Democrats versus Republicans, but we also need to take it back to the voters, because a lot of these voters are putting these crazy Democrats in place. We've seen what's happening in New York, where they have this like super liberal that that won the primary. So you know, we really have to. It's good that we have this show so that we can really educate people about what's actually happening, and to also reinforce that they have the power to change these things, because not all Democrats and Republicans are made equal, because like we have your blue dog Democrat like Fetterman, and then we have your libertarian Republican like Rand Paul, like we've been talking about. So it's up to the voters. There are things that voters want, and we have to kind of sift through all of that minutia. But at the end of the day, it is on the voters. We have to arm them with information, and that's what I'm glad that this show does.
Well, I want to say this to the American people, the patriots across this country. I don't care what organization. You could be a libertarian, you could be a Democrat, you can be a Republican, you could just be a conservative. When you are voted into office, your job is to go take care of the business of the American people. This ain't about Democrats and Republicans. This is about the American people. Anybody that holds office, who swears on a Bible that they're going to do right by the people of the United States of America, that is their job. The Constitution is what they should be following. There should be no variations over here because you want to do this. Just like you said, Andre, this is all about the political leaders that are in office who betray the American voters. This is the betrayal of the American people by our political leaders. When they divvy away from the Constitution, what it means and how this country was built on that Constitution, then that's the problem. And that's the problem we're seeing today. The Democratic Party has strayed away from following orders of the Constitution. They've strayed away from following orders of the American people. And now this war is going on because the Democrats, I said, I'm just being honest, after we saw what they did with Joe Biden, they just screwed the country totally the hell up. And now that they've got it all screwed up, George Soros, Obama, the Clintons, all of them who were part of this evil one world order, that's what this is. They got the country so screwed up, they mad as hell that President Trump has gotten into office. He's turning things around. He's giving rights to the people, back to the people. And the Democrats feel that we need to move forward with the new culture. No, it ain't no new culture. We don't have to stand up and wait for somebody to tell the American people with lies and throwing the rock and hiding their hand. Let me say this, and I'm going to pass the torch. To the American people and patriots across this country, just think about this. Look at our education system. We got children who are graduated out of high school that can't even read or write. They have no reasoning. They don't understand nothing about math and science. They don't understand nothing about history. They have no legal thoughts about nothing that they need to have to be good citizens and take our country to the next level. We got a bunch of generations that they can't read cursive, they can't write cursive, they can't spell, they can't add if it ain't on a computer. All of this stuff was done under the Democratic leadership. And this leading to this next conversation, to the American people, the patriots across this country, God gave you children. You created children. You and your wife and your woman and your man, y'all created children that you have to take care of. They're your responsibility. Tell me why, under the Democratic leadership, that the parents of the United States of America, why did parents lose their parental rights to their own children that they got to take care of? See, that's the question that the American people should be saying. How did we lose our parental rights? Because in the big, beautiful bill, and also the Supreme Court stated that parents have their full rights back to their children. They cannot be forced. The children cannot be forced to go along with the LGBT group and what they're teaching in the schools, and now parents can opt out of that. And I'm going to put this on the floor. Why should parents not be told on what's going on in the schools with their children? See, this all came under the Democratic leadership when they brought transgenderism into our schools, talking about sex education, boys having sex with boys. When they brought it through Planned Parenthood, which lost their money, I'm telling you, in the big, beautiful bill, parents are getting their parental rights back, and that's the American way. These are our children that God gave us, and no teacher should be allowed to tell me what my kids can learn and what problems that they have and how they have to take children out of people's homes and fix them and turn boys into girls and girls into boys. Your thoughts, Ray?
Well, Pastor Lowery, the Bible says that the love of money is the root of all evil. And what are we seeing? We're seeing a lot of elected officials that come in at a certain income level and they leave at a much higher income level, or they're in the government for years and they're just like multi-billionaires. So we're seeing that lobbyists and corporations are infusing money and having influence over our elected officials. And until we get the money and the lobbyists out of the halls in Congress, we're going to see a lot of the same. And I'm glad that this bill does deal with that issue of restoring parent rights, because part of the reason why we're homeschooling is because of a lot of the craziness that we saw was happening in the schools. We would love to be able to send our kids to public school like we attended, but things have changed, agendas have changed, and it's no longer about math, science, and arithmetic. So I don't want any parts of that. I want to make sure my kids get a good education, and I want to be involved. Now, what some of these teachers and teachers unions are saying is that parents want to be involved, but as far as curriculum is concerned, they don't have the knowledge to be able to like really kind of dictate the actual curriculum. That may be true, but if they don't want to opt in to a certain part of the curriculum that they can understand, I don't think it's up to the teachers or the school administration to say that we are going to take authority. We're not going to let the parents know about this, and we're going to continue to teach the things that we want to teach.
And Mickey?
Yeah, and to add what Andrew said, he mentioned the unions. The unions are a big part of what the problem in school is too, because the states, the states got this what's called in loco parentis, which means when the kids are in school, the teachers act as their parents. So these unions, not all, but some of these school teachers and stuff feel like it's interfering with the home, because a lot of they teach, they ask these kids, well, I see something wrong with you. Is there something going on in your home? you know, and then that starts CPS to come in and investigate. And, you know, it's just a lot of things here. And the biggest thing is they're not teaching kids really the truth about history. They're not wanting the kids to know anything.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's the dumbing down of these kids today. I mean, I wasn't the brightest in high school. I hated school. I couldn't wait to get out. And then a few years after I'm out, I'm going, boy, you know, I wish I was back in school, you know. But these kids are just they're being shortcutted here. And the parents should have never lost their rights to have kind of say so over their local school boards, let alone the state. And it's just been a slow domino effect on parents losing their rights. I mean, in the 60s, you always seen the PTA meetings, parent meetings and stuff. Where did them go? You know, and then now it's like a hammer just hit everybody. All this transgender stuff and the secrecy, and you know, the teachers getting themselves, even to the point I was reading where these kids were getting laptops sent home with cameras on it, so and the teachers could see what was going on in the home.
Exactly.
You know,
exactly.
It's a good thing that Trump got the parents' rights back, but it's up to us to keep them and restore what we had. And with that, then the education of our kids could start getting better.
Well, you know, and that's why I say, and I keep putting a time on it. Homosexuality has always been in the school system, but it was never put to the place where they stopped the children from learning about science and math and history and all of that stuff, and really separate the children from their parents. That's what this whole thing was about. It was about getting the kids at a young age to be acceptable to homosexuality, pedophilia, and all the rest of the bad things that they should not be worrying about at such an early age. You got these books talking about in kindergarten on kindergartens trying to distinguish what's the difference between a lesbian and a pedophile and a homosexual. All of these teachings are doing nothing for our children. And we've seen it over the past 4 years. That's when we seen the whole culture shock. That's when we found out, a lot of parents found out during COVID that they had lost their rights to their own children. Because just like you said, Binky, they were sending laptops home, spying on the families, all of that the teachers was doing. They have no right, they had no power to do that. These are not their children. And most of the teachers under DEI, see, this was the birth of DEI. When DEI came, after they fired all the teachers, especially black teachers, with the degrees, with the PhDs, the real teachers who was teaching phonics, who taught us. I graduated from high school at 15. That's because I had real teachers. Under DEI, they've hired homosexual teachers who have no experience with kids, but only there to indoctrinate them. That happens under the Democrats. That's what they did to the schools. That's why we see Terry Newsom talking about the books and stuff that they was teaching to the kids. They had pictures and books teaching boys to have sex with boys and put their penises in their butt using condoms. All of that kind of stuff is being taught in the schools. And when parents go up to say something about it, most of them are considered terrorists and they're barred from going to the school. We've seen it. That happened here in our country to our children and our schools. And now President Trump is saying it's over. No longer is going to happen. That's what he said. And he restored parents' rights. But it's up to the parents now to get to these schools and make sure that their children are being taught correctly, because they have the right to be there now. There can be no more terrorists like they did you, Binky, when you came to the school. Binky went to the school. They told Binky he was a terrorist, and they kicked him out the meeting.
Wow.
Yeah. Terry Newsom went to the school, good friend of mine. His twins was in the school. They was teaching them all these lewd things, sexual things, practicing kids using dildos to learn how to give oral sex. I mean, it's all in the schools. And when Terry went up to the school and spoke out and said, you know what, I don't want my kids in it. They said they have no other choice because there was no opt-out. They forced his kids to go to these classes, but he took his kids out. The point that I'm making is, what about all of these children who have been exposed to this type of culture, who now cannot read or write because they graduated them out of high school? What's going to happen to them? Your thoughts on that, Dre?
Well, we're going to continue to see the cycle of America being at the bottom of the world education system. And we're going to have a generation of adults that are on welfare, which a lot of politicians want, because it's a money maker for the government. And it kind of, fuses money into the halls of Congress that should be going to the people, that sometimes go back to the politicians.
Your thoughts, Bink?
Yeah, and don't forget too, here in Illinois, you were here at the time. Parents were going to school boards about those books, and what the Democrats here in Illinois did, the parents said, no, we don't want these books in the libraries. We don't want them around our kids in schools. The Democrats went and passed a law.
Sure did.
That said that if you take these books out, you'll lose partial funding for your school. So this is what the Democrats did with that. So that's where the parents were trying to speak up, and the politicians were deliberately going and silencing and shutting them down, even having them arrested from school board meetings for bringing it up. So that's
being placed on watch lists.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So that's what Democrats are. That's what these liberal states have their police doing, is the dirty work. And I'm sorry, the police ought to know better. You can't.
Every law enforcement officer who swore on the Bible after they took the oath to protect the citizens of this country, then they need to step outside the box when they see all these type of things that are being done to the citizens and speak out about it. They should be speaking just like the sheriff. The sheriff is sworn to uphold the Constitution of the United States of America. The sheriff is. So the sheriff could have already told J.B. Pritzker and Brandon Johnson, no, hell no. We're not going to accept the illegals here. This is no longer a sanctuary city. And that would have ended it. The sheriff had the power to end the sanctuary city. And Tom Dart in Chicago didn't do it. So that's why in the election time coming up, people need to replace Tom Dart as the sheriff of Chicago or Cook County, because he did not do his job. Even during COVID, he saw that these vaccinations was a lie. They saw it themselves, and these sheriffs did not uphold the Constitution. That's what they swore to the American people and patriots across this country. If your sheriff has not stepped up and said and declared that Chicago is not a sanctuary city because it violates the Constitution of the United States of America, if your sheriff is not saying that and standing with ICE, then you need to replace him. And there needs to be a lot of replacements going on during the midterm. We need to get rid of every Democratic leader who have come against this bill. We need to get rid of every Democrat who voted to take parental rights away. We need to get rid of every Democrat who went along with the transgender stuff into the schools and into our culture. They should not hold office at no level, the state level, the federal level. They should not. The Democratic Party should be totally disbanded for what they've done in the last 4 years. They've created treason with the invasion of the illegal. That's enough right now to get rid of this party, because they don't have the American people best interests at hand, and the people should go to the poll and vote out every Democrat that's in office. Your last words, Mr. Binky. We're going to get up out of here.
Yeah, well, I just want everybody to remember, all men are created equal and endowed by their creator, not government. And you need to read the Declaration, understand what it means, and start learning what government's role is, and that's the only way we're going to hold them accountable.
Mr. Beaky, thanks for showing up. We'll talk to you soon.
All right.
Dre, your last words.
I think the policies are very important. I think that, like Mr. Binky said, education in what the Constitution says, in what the law says, and monitoring and seeing how your elected officials have voted empower you to make a good decision legislatively. And also understanding how you can recall someone if they don't do what they're supposed to do is so important as well. Where we've run into problems with some of these sanctuary cities is they've decided that they're going to take states' rights way above what the Constitution calls for. And our Supreme Court hasn't done anything to address that. So what we must do is what the Trump administration is already doing, which is pushing the Supreme Court to take action and to clarify states' rights versus federal rights.
Dre, I want to thank you for coming on the show, man. It's always a pleasure to have you on, man.
Thank you.
And we're going to keep going, man. Like I said, our network we are about 10 days away from everything launching, and we're going to keep everybody, but you can go to Let the Truth Be Told Network if you're on Roku, and you can find us there. Go and look at some of the shows that we're putting up there at Roku, Let the Truth Be Told Network, and leave a message at our website, LetTheTruthBeToldRadio.com. If you got any issues, then we can help you with it. Dre, thank you. We'll talk. Have a great, man. This seems like Friday, man.
Exactly. Oh my God.
I'm having a problem, man.
Exactly.
Have a great 4th of July. We'll talk, brother. God bless you and peace.
God bless you.
Folks, I want to thank you for tuning in to the show. This is something that we need to be informed on. We need to stay on top of the situation that's going on with us today in our country. We need to understand one thing, that what President Trump is doing is bringing us back to the place where we used to be, bringing this country back to respectability so that we can raise our children and have a future. Currently, if we stay down the road of what the Democrats are doing, our children do not have a chance. They don't understand what they're dealing with. They're uneducated. All they know is to do is what they've been told, and that's not the American way. The First Amendment is the freedom of speech and religion. The second is the right to bear arms. And these are the amendments that the Democrats have continued to attack to the American people and patriots across this country. We need to support President Trump as he creates new legislation for a long term so that these things cannot be tampered with or changed. The 14th Amendment, as you know, has nothing to do with illegals. It has nothing to do with birthright, because there is no birthright citizens. Just because you had a child on our soil mean that you're citizens. That's not what the 14th Amendment means. To the American people and patriots across this country, I'm going to make a suggestion that you get the Constitution and read it. And then you will know how to hold the politicians accountable, because they don't want you to know that you have the power. The power in the Constitution belongs to the Republic, and the Republic is the people. I want to thank you for tuning in. God bless you. Y'all share the show around. Facebook continue to play with my feed. They continue to stop me from sharing to my groups. To those who are in my different groups across the country, come to my page and watch it. This way you can get the information you need so that you can continue to get the truth, to have good information, to make right decisions and create solutions to the problems that we have in this country, to get people in the office who respect our votes and respect the American citizen. God bless you. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you guys tomorrow.